Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our final Yes Speaker Series talk of day 3, featuring Marlo Onilla, who will share his ideas on challenging conventions and avoiding the obvious. My name is Anna Rita Mores, and I'm the chair for the School of Design here at George Brown College, and I'd like to welcome you to this talk. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that George Brown College is located on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and other Indigenous people who have lived here over time. We're grateful to share this land as treaty people who learn, work, and live in a community with each other. Across the School of Design, we remain committed to identifying and removing systemic barriers to accessing college programs and services, and are committed to working towards strategies, tools, and actions to better support our Indigenous student population. In a commitment to build connections and opportunities for students to engage with design's visionaries, YES features a week-long lecture series. The design-focused speaker series has been cultivated in an effort to provide dynamic perspectives and unique discussion opportunities for members of our community, including students and faculty alike. Honest advice for designers from really good designers connects the School of Design with those who've impacted the industry on a local and global scale through a focused thematic-based lecture. This is followed by an opportunity for conversation and dialogue using the chat, so please feel free to relay all of your questions from Marlo there. With that, I'm proud to introduce Marlo Onilla. Marlo has been working in the design industry for 25 plus years and has been vital to Biography's success since its inception. A fine blend of creative vision and project objectives, Marlo is mainly responsible for the firm's creative development, creative leadership as well, and team management. As creative director and founder, Marlo pursues effective and appropriate solutions while leading clients in the areas of brand development, visual identity, and strategic communications. Since 1993, Marlo has garnered numerous prestigious awards for design excellence. His work has been recognized and featured in every leading design publication, such as Communication Arts, the Advertising and Design Club of Canada, American Institute of Graphic Arts, Designlines Magazine, Art Directors Club, Coupe Magazine, How Magazine, Applied Arts Magazine, Type Directors Club, and Print Magazine, just to name a few. Biography is a multidisciplinary branding consultancy of designers and creative thinkers. Their vision, is for inspired results that make a lasting impact. Their passion is for compelling design. Their strength is an ability to provide innovative concepts that extend beyond the predictable. They're listeners and storytellers who combine imaginative ideas and thoughtful design solutions to craft and cultivate brands. Welcome, Marlo. Moderating the Q&A portion of today's session is Emma Keat. Emma is a graduating student from the graphic design program and the co-host of the podcast SOD Talks. She has a passion for branding and packaging and creating thoughtful and strategic design. Her thesis project is called Flashback. This brand was created to encourage face-to-face conversations between family members centered around family history. It consists of a board game that encourages families to learn the bigger story behind forgotten family photos through the simple act of conversation. And a book, The Guide for Preserving Family Photographs, going through the best practices of digitizing, organizing, displaying, and storing these photographs. With that, I am pleased to turn it over to Marlo, who's going to get started with his presentation.
Hello, thank you so much, Anna Rita, for the mouthful introduction there. Sorry. And nice to meet you, Emma. And like to also thank you for all the viewers for tuning in today for the conversation. Appreciate it. Thank you. It's weird because as much as you want to prepare for this kind of stuff, it's always like you're never prepared. There's so many things going in your head, and you want to make sure you see the right things to so that it could resonate with whoever's watching. But I wanted to the past few days I've been actually listening in from last year's speakers, and I got to tell you, there's I'm happy to see that there's a lot of young and upcoming creatives and designers out there, and so kudos to you guys. Well done. and also I see that seeing the older generation of designers that spoke as well, and I'm talking about the Fidels, the Vanessas, and the Gilbert Lees, and obviously Polisher. Those are my colleagues that I believe we probably started our business the same time, or more or less, and I respect their work, and so it's good to see them still kicking ass and just making really really cool, appropriate design out there. Because at the end of the day, for me personally, I think our job as designers is that we have to inspire each other, and to do better, to raise the bar for the next designer. And I've done this in many occasions, where that's my first thinking. How do I do something so that the next designer can look at it and say, what, that's awesome. I want to do something equal or even that's better than this. And by doing that, I think we're going to build a beautiful community or in the country, and have this sort of, place that, people around the world would respect when it comes to doing design. And so that's nice, But before I begin, I want to share quickly a few things. I know that we started late, and I tend to ramble on, but what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have enough time at the end to to be able to answer some questions, because I think that those are important, and I think I actually prefer questions than talking in general, because in a way, how do I talk about something that spans 25 years? There's so many things, and how do I condense that to a way that makes sense? But for me, it's all about the people. I feel, for me personally, I'm comfortable even now sort of talking about myself or biography, just because throughout the years I've collaborated and worked with many numerous creatives alike: designers, photographers, illustrators, strategists, copywriters, and suppliers, my printers, my Chinese lady that works in Chinatown, in a small little place that sews up my stuff if I needed to, or even a guy that works out of his garage in Welland, Ontario, and that does engraving and does all these sort of like very, very craft stuff that I think is important in what I do. And I think these guys, I rely on them dearly, and without them, my vision, or biography's vision and ideas would just be an idea. And these guys, you need these guys to bring it to life in a nice way. So I wanted to mention that as well. But so I'm going to, can everybody see this page right now?
Yeah, Marlo, we're good. We can see it.
You can see it, right? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So my talk today it involves about challenging convention and avoiding the obvious. As mentioned, biography it is in its 25 years in the making, and steeped in one consistency, and that is, avoiding the obvious. And that mantra, or whatever you want to call it, it's something that I hold dearly, to remind myself of what I do. And every morning I wake up, and that's the thing I look at, and I think about, how do I make things different? How can I stand out from the rest? How can I compete moving forward? And how do I challenge everything? How do challenging is good. It when everyone's saying it's not doable, it usually is. That's the best part for me. It's the attempt is the beauty in in those kind of things. challenge yourself and be it. Don't be afraid of failure, because you know what, failure you'll learn. You know, um, just like in life, there's a lot of ups and downs, right? A lot of successes and failures. But I think the trick is the best way I can describe it is in an analogy, is that it's like a wave. It's like that perfect wave. If you're a surfer, you catch you can be on your board for hours trying to catch that big wave, and then when you do catch it, it's the most beautiful thing because you're on top of the world. And but realizing that, just like anything else, that wave's going to come down. So I think the question is, how do you get back up? You do it again, and that's where the resilience part comes in all this. So I'm just going to share with you a few projects current projects that the Biography has worked on, and these three projects covers three things that Biography kind of focuses on, and I think this is done intentionally. Even with our new website, we decided that we wanted to filter out certain projects that we don't necessarily like, but we don't want to work on. I know it's probably a bad business model, but for me it works, and I'm okay with it. By doing that, you filter a lot of the tire kickers in terms of like work wise, right? So for me, having only 4 case studies in my website, and out of those 4 case studies, hopefully what happens is that if you're a potential client and you go into my website and it covers those 4 things, now what happens is that by the time you call me, hopefully I know you've done your research and that already you're interested in what I do. So that avoids the fact that, because you get it, all right, as a client, you appreciate my capabilities and you know what my expectations are. And that's the hard part in a lot of projects and a lot of clients is having that sort of, I call it the double T's, which is trust and transparency. Those are the clients that's going to provide you great work, and vice versa. And you're going to be able to produce a product for them that is way out there, and everyone's going to be happy at the end of the day. So let me just go through my presentation here. I don't know if you guys or people that live in the area or people that live in Toronto may have passed this building where Biography's studio is at. And, for me, design for me is so subjective in terms of, talking about it, because, my biography, for instance, is we're for someone, but but we're not for everybody, and I can accept that, and so our building is the first thing that, as an intro to what I do or what Biography does, is that there it is. It's people ask me what's the sign about, and for me, it's not about. I don't think about the negative things about that sign or about that phrase or about that what it says. I think about it from a different perspective. Client from hell, I take it in a way everybody may have run into one or not. If not, then that's even better. But for me, I take it in a different way. I take inspiration from it. It's something that I learned from. And that's good, and that always drives me to do what I do. It's funny, I have a fun story about this particular sign. Throughout my careers, I've always sort of validated in the way I think. in terms of what makes me tick. So I always validate things when I show stuff. And this is one example of it. I remember one time there was a construction worker that came by and jokingly yells out to me, "Hey, buddy, your sign is upside down." And I'm saying to myself, that just validated the exact people that I don't want to be associated with when it comes to design. And then meanwhile, another day, I saw a beautiful couple. They must have been in their 70s. They were holding hands, and they walked by and they stopped in front of the sign, and they were looking at it. And I was curious. I saw them from inside, so I walked out. I introduced myself, and I got to talking to them, and I found out that they were old design professors, and they were telling me about how they love design and so forth, and that's validated my thinking, and that's what I want. And the people that get it, and so that made my day when that happened. But so going into my first sort of case study here, or sample, as mentioned, the three things that these clients, the four samples that I'm showing you, the common things they have here as a client is that they gave me full trust in my capabilities, and that is the most important thing with working with any clients and projects, because that's the only way you're really going to give it your 110%. For this particular client, they came to Biography, and they wanted to create this sort of package. It's probably the biggest invitation I had to do in my career. Nothing special. It's they specialize in furniture. They've done a lot of furniture for the hospitality industry, and they're really well known around the world and in their own way. So we came up with the naming for it, and at the time, I told them, by calling it Nothing Special, everything you do from here on has to be special, because if it's not, then you're contradicting yourself and your brand. So they understood that, and that was nice to hear. So from here on, this was the very, very first sort of promotional collateral piece that we had created for them. The word Nothing Special as a word mark, and also we did a little icon for them that pretty much just says zeros, nada, right? Nothing. And the cool thing about this project also is that it literally is an invitation that only went out to a few select people, 20 to be exact, 20 designers around the world that would get this. And what it is was an invitation to these designers. They could be industrial designers, interior designers, even architects for that matter. And their scope was to create something special. This was the actual finished box that the actual book or the invitation went into. So it's made out of a cardboard wood. Actually made out of wood. And we had custom labels done for it. So it's Nothing Special delivery. And coincidentally, there would be another version of the book once the designs are done, which we would call Nothing Special Edition. So that would come after this. The thing about this book is that it's one of those things about, again, challenging yourself and doing something that hasn't been done before, or at least for what that at least different or unique. I don't even like to say those words, to be honest, just because they are tiresome. Because who doesn't want to create or want to be unique and different and cool and edgy? Everybody does. But at the end, it really boils down to what you can sort of provide, or what you can, if you've done it before, then you can validate it. So this book here, it was a long process. It actually took almost a year to do this book, believe it or not, and it was only 20 of them that we had to do. But the book itself was 138 pages. It had 36 beautiful photography that was inside the brochure. The dimension was fairly big, and then the book itself was beautiful. We used, I think, every material out there. We used gauze, sand, epoxy, resin, paint, brass, acetate, leather, and from a production standpoint, we did the laser cutting, the laser engraving, and this was the laser cut and the laser engraving. We had to, go. I had to drive to Welland, Ontario, back and forth for this duration, just to make sure that everything was being done properly. And those are the kind of things as a designer you have to go through. There's a lot of like really just sacrifice and just doing due diligence, doing your work, and going that extra mile to make it what it is. And I've had instances with projects and clients where I felt it wasn't good enough, but the budget wasn't there. That's fine. I had to put in Biography had to put in their own money just to make sure it was done right, and that's okay, because for me that's okay, right? I went into this industry because of, definitely not because of the money, right? And you have to have the passion. I've never chased money, and I jokingly tell people or friends that what, I'm very, very wealthy. All I need is money. So this industry is all about passion. If you don't have it, then you're not going to be happy. Chase happiness. That's what I do, and that's what Biography is all about. So as you can see there, so this book itself, or this box, so we had the laser engraving, as you can see there, and we wrapped it in leather. And that leather, the only purpose of that leather is actually used as a pull, because it's so heavy that you cannot put your fingers in it and then lift it up because there's not enough room. So we created this sort of leather strap just to, to act as a pull, to pull it up from the box. And what's cool about this box also is that we created this custom sort of a pinhole that had the logo, the company logo engraved on the brass pin. And what that pin is basically, here you can see the actual book being pulled out. But what that pin is actually, sorry about that. So what that pin is actually, not only does it hold the book from falling from the actual shell of the box, it actually, the whole book is drilled right through. So in order to do that, so we, the book itself was smite sewn, and then had to be drilled throughout the book in order for it to work. And inside this pin, you got this pencil that the designers would receive, and potentially they would do their sketches on the actual book. And because this book here, when you open it up, the first 10 or 15 pages of it is blank, it's empty. And that was done intentionally so that the designers can sketch their ideas on those blank pages, and eventually we would sort of document those sketches to use for the second special edition of the book. Just to show you the intricacy of this particular box, we tried to make a concrete box. It didn't work out because it was too heavy. That's why we decided to replicate it to look like concrete, and that's where all those materials came in, right down to the cover of the book, which we poured high gloss epoxy on the cover of the book, which has the hands, a photograph of the hands of the founder of the company. And inside the books, they had this beautiful sort of abstract photography that was taken from the manufacturing company. And within the book, we had little snippets of little sayings here and there, and a call to action to the designers, because you have to keep in mind that the designers that were chosen to get these invites is from all over the world. So a person could be getting it from a mountaintop somewhere in Italy, behind on top of a donkey that the guy is sort of riding on, to get to the top of the mountain. That's the whole sort of concept behind that, right? And as mentioned, you can see the hole that we drilled throughout the book. So this is one of the three things that the biography focuses on, and this one is more from the experimental perspective of what we do. And I think doing stuff that are experimental, it is so beautiful, because you get to try different things, and the rewards for it at the end is so overwhelming. So that's why I like to work on things that are experimental. It brings out the tactileness. It brings out the analog part in what biography does. Where we definitely respect tradition, but in the future as well. But at the end of the day, you gotta mix the two, right? So that's the front of the book, and also the back of the book. The second project is a real estate development company that we just currently completed. We had called it Biblio, and the actual developer, or the actual development company for this project was a company that did not have a name at the time. So we in conjunction with the development name, we created a name for them, and a visual identity. And so we came up with the word invisible, and it was something that the client it really believed in, because they were the type of developers that that wanted to stay in the background and have everybody else, or build a team around it. Almost like we came up with a tagline for them that's called the team builders, and that's what they are. And basically, they are the directors, and everybody that they hire, whether it's the architects or the interior designers or the brand development company, we are the actors and they are the directors. So they came up to us to create this a boutique condominium in the East End. And the one key thing about this development is that there was a historical library right beside it. And and I know in the beginning, the first name that was floating around in terms of the name for the building was a library. And once I heard about it, I said, I started thinking about my tagline, avoid the obvious. And I said, no, we can't name it the library, because it's too obvious, right? So, let's name it Biblio. And, it worked, and for what it is, and because it was a library, but it was we kind of elevated it to be a little bit more sophisticated, and we had a nice concept around it, which is more importantly. So we were able to do a good storytelling. We were able to build a good narrative around the concept, and as you can see for the logo, if you see the building has this beautiful sort of arch windows. And part of if you look at this logo, there's the arches that kind of represents the window of the building. And we have the stylized upside down B for Biblio, and we also have the bookmark and the open book that kind of represents the novel or the book concept within the project. And so we had we came up with a tagline that mentioned, "Go ahead, judge us by our cover." And the East End of Toronto needs no preface or introduction. And I think every time this was the actual logo for the development company, with the three eyes sort of disappearing, but it's still there. Even without the three eyes, it's still pronounced as invisible. The one thing for anything, like, when we were working on the presentation center, I was thinking to myself, okay, what has every development company has done up to now, in terms of presentation center, yeah, they created, big, huge, oversized, large formats, large printing signages, and they just covered up the presentation center. And so I said to myself, how can we make this different? Again, always challenging yourself and what's doable and what's not, and you're never gonna know until you do it. So in this case, instead of just using a tie back or in this case a tarp to cover the whole facade of the building, and it's a pretty big frontage or a big facade of the presentation center. We decided, what, let's cover it with tarp, but let's put the saying or the tagline on it, right? And then what we can do is, instead of having the tarp be flat, let's make it 3D, right? And so what we did is that we actually created this skeleton made out of aluminum bars behind this tarp. And that aluminum bar is flexible. So what you do is, when we laid out the tarp on top of it, we were able to then, fix those aluminum bars to a point where we create this sort of like shapes that created this. So it's almost like there's a wind blowing and it's making it this sort of shape, but it's like that, it's stationary. And, and at the same time, we also did this sort of like threading rope just to give it more of a book binding kind of feel to it, because again, our concept was around the novel, around the book, this whole sort of beautiful hand stitched books and smite sewn books that you would see in a library, right? So here you can see a part of the window or the entrance, but you can see the actual the material on top of it, and that goes up a little bit way higher than what you see now. From there, we again, always thinking about how to challenge things, right? How can we make it different from the last one? We created an ad that went into a Zoom magazine, and what I wanted to do is, but because of the historic part of the library, I wanted to have something on stone. In this case, it was this, and what we did, I had the actual sort of ad engraved on the actual stone, and then we photographed it, and then it was used as a secondary sort of a wayfinding signage within the presentation center, and that made it more tactile. It suited the concept. And there you can see a little bit of the way the book, this smite sewn book was. And the cool thing about this project also is that, doing a brochure to give out, it's already it's already great, and it's for the public, right? And for this project, we decided to do 2 books. And one book that was sort of generic, which is this one that you're looking at right now. this was a generic book that was, to be handed out to people that just walked into the presentation center, or people that request a book to see what the building is all about. So that's what they got, and kind of shows. And then the second book that we did was a little bit more substantial. So it came in a box form. And again, we used the same tarp that we used for the signage. And then we used the clever narratives as a copy. Again, keeping with the branding of it in terms of the book, the library. And this book box, again, it housed the same brochure, for the exception that we created a flip book that had a video of the dinner party that we had for the actual presentation center when it was opened, and we called it the missing middle, and because that was part of the industry that the client was trying to get into, the mid-rise buildings. They were about doing buildings that was for end users. They weren't doing massive high-rise buildings. That was not their forte. Again, we carried this out throughout the collateral. With this, so that's Biblio, and then the third one is the hospitality portion, and I've been fortunate enough to have created and worked with a lot of clients, a lot of in the city doing hospitality. And again, this particular client had that trust in me again, had the trust in Biography in terms of our capabilities. So we had free reign, and so with these two restaurants, they're two sister restaurants based in Toronto. One is called Giulietta, and one is called Osteria Giulia. And the whole thinking, the whole storytelling behind these two restaurants is that Giulietta is supposed to be the younger sister, and Giulia was supposed to be the older sister. Giulietta opened first, which is located on College Street. And the whole idea for that is that since it was a younger sister, the demographics was more for a younger generation. Cocktails and pizza, loop earrings. Where Osteria Giulia was more of the mature, sophisticated sister that was located in Yorkville. And so the demographic, again, is totally different. It's more for anniversaries, or more for special dates. More wine, more bottles of wine. So those two, that was the concept. And on top of like the overall sort of story that we wanted to say is that it was supposed to be two sisters growing up as kids, and as you will see, with Giulietta, we did this sort of concept that revolved around more of the Romeo and Juliet concept. Where Osteria Giulia, we created more of a very kid-like concept. And I'm not too sure if you've been to Osteria Giulia. If you go there, I worked with a brilliant interior designer called Guido Constantino, and he did both Giulietta and actually Julia as well. And his style is a little bit more minimal, very detailed. And so what I wanted to create was this sort of juxtaposition where, when you walk into the restaurant, it's beautiful, and from lighting to just the small details. And then when you look at the branding around it, it was more of a more friendlier, a little bit more, so it kind of complemented each other. And the fact that we created 4 different logos was kind of cool. And there's not one logo, there's 4 logos. You can use it all together or just one of each. And as you will see, a lot of the branding is based on that. This here is actually, again, going back to my topic about doing things that and challenging yourself and how to be different. This is a perfect scenario. This particular, we didn't want another signage outside the restaurant. We wanted to be a little bit more discreet, so and very very simple. At one point, we didn't know what to do, so we decided that, hey, one way we can do this is by engraving Austria Julia on the actual marble, right? But the problem is the marble is 4 feet by 8 feet, right? There's no flatbed out there that can actually do that, or a machine that can actually engrave that. So we actually found someone to actually hand carve this. Actually, it was at nighttime. Some of it was at nighttime, where this guy was actually hand engraving this on site. So it was a beautiful thing, because that no one else or someone will try it, but it's difficult, right? So again, so when it was done, you say, you're happy, because, hey, you know what, we did something that we know is going to be very hard to replicate, right? And that's always the goal in design, is always trying to do something that is unique, right? I'm just going to go through some of this stuff here. Even for the menus, we decided, well, how can we reinvent the menu? It's very difficult. You got to worry about practicality. You got to worry about budgets. So hey, you know what? I decided, let's use Tyvek. I mean, it's a durable, water repellent paper. And let's hand stitch those scribbles on each menu, and we did that. And so now all the menus are all custom sewn. Not one is the same. Every person that walks into that restaurant will get a different menu. So it made it, from an experience standpoint, and it's special. It made that particular person special, having his or her own sort of menu to look at. Obviously everything that right down to the aprons, right? We instead of just having a normal apron, we kicked it up a notch and adding leather to it and so forth, right? And had all the different sort of monograms of the G of Julia embroidered on it as well. Even the menus, we had it sort of blind embossed, as you see there. The coasters, again, you say to yourself, how can we reinvent the coaster? Well, let's do one, but let's do a handmade one. Let's do one that's offcut, so it's not one is the same. And so we had those engraved as well. And then with the uniforms, well, let's do the same thing with the uniforms. Well, let's what can we do to make it different? So I had these leather buttons actually made, because I couldn't use the typical buttons, because as you know, buttons only have 4 holes. So if you have 4 holes, you can't create an actual letter. You have to have 6 holes. So in this case, we needed to have the letters, letter G, letter I, and letter U for their initials on the actual buttons. So we had to create our own buttons that had 6 holes. So we created this sort of leather buttons, which is a nice detailed touch, which a lot of people may not see, but that's the beauty of things in that nature, Lastly, I just wanted to show you really quickly a lot of we do a lot of identities, visual identities, logos per se. You may recognize some of these sort of brands. on the screen here, but there's one particular one. I mean, imagine, in a span of 25 years, how many logos we've created. I would say hundreds, to be honest, and all different for different reasons, But I wanted to share one that I feel like, again, staying true to what biography is. This particular client or project was for an actual. It started out as a hotel, and then the owners decided to pivot and make it into more of a accommodations for Airbnb. But when you go inside, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful Airbnb. And again, I worked with another interior design firms called Commute Design on this. And why I love this logo so much is because if you look at it, it's something that it would be very hard to replicate. There's only one way of designing this logo to make sense, And the reason why we called it numbers is because the owners of the place are actually in the real estate industry, and that's what they do. That's what they sell, numbers. So that was the thinking behind this particular sort of logo and identity. So I'm proud of it. I think it's one of the nicer logos that I've worked on. So I'm happy with it. Lastly, I just felt like I wanted to put this out there, just for people, for designers who are looking for, potentially. This is what matters to biography in terms of who we look for in a design, or what I look for in a designer. Keen eye, details, passionate, initiative, resourceful, 50% talent, 25% personality, 25% potential, ambitious, opinionated, risk taker, punctual, hands-on, personable, independent, humble, illustrator, Photoshop, pen design, pencil sketchers, and doers. Sense of humor, big bonus. Thank you. That's would be it for my presentation.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Very insightful. I saw those projects on your website earlier, but it was just very insightful hearing your thought process behind it and just like where you were coming from. So thank you. So I have a couple questions that I'm going to ask you, and then we can open it up to the chat, and you guys can leave some questions there. So if you want to start sending some questions in, that would be amazing. But I loved you talking about how biography kind of you've branded yourself in a way that the clients that come to you know that you take risks and that you are avoiding the obvious and doing something special. But what would you recommend to, say, students like me and my classmates that are heading out into the world of design and doing freelance maybe, or and we're getting clients that are more conservative, and how would you persuade them to kind of step out of the box and do something not so obvious?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think first of all, believe in yourself. I mean, have confidence in what you stand for. You can only try, right? I mean, in trying to convince your clients in terms of what you want to do, but at the end of the day, the goal is the client. It's they have to be happy with the final outcome. And the thing is, there's not a lot. It's not for everybody. I mean, I've had just the luxury of the position where I am now, where I'm able to turn down work, and that's not for everybody. Because that's bad business. right? In a way. But for me, I'm happy with that because I'm content at this point of my career in terms of the amount of clients that I lose, I gain in so much creativity because as a designer, it's the creative ideas, the creative part that gets you up in the morning. Without that, then it becomes just a job,
Yeah.
and I think us, as designers, in a way, we have something a lot. You're born with it in a way. Sometimes, what I mean by that is, I find out that nowadays when I look at design, I find that it's a little bit too easy. It's a little bit more. It's too easy to attain. And what I mean by that is because all of a sudden there's more designers now than ever. And I'm saying to myself, why is that? That's because of the internet. That's because of social media. You have things like Pinterest. You have things that supply you mock-ups, things that give you what fonts to use, what color to use, all these things, and then all of a sudden it becomes easy. And I think the only way you're really going to stand out and differentiate yourself from another designer is the creative portion, And I know creativity is a little bit tricky because, in a way, to me personally, creativity is something that you're born with, right? And you can teach, you can learn design because there's tools that can help you do that. But at the end of the day, those are all just visuals, pretty pictures. Creativity is a foundation of good design. Without creativity, you don't have any storytelling, right? And you know what I mean? And it's like going to a grocery store, and you ask the clerk, hey, mister, how much does that design cost at the bottom shelf? And they'll tell you, oh, it costs $100. And then you may say, well, what about that creative on the top shelf? How much does that cost? And they'll tell you, I'm sorry, it's not for sale. And I think those are the kind of things where, even if you don't not creative in your own way, you can be if you surround yourself with creative people, creative thinkers. You'll learn how to approach it. But
Yeah.
but a lot of the time, you're born with it. No different from an athlete. Our industry is not no different from an athlete. These guys get paid because of something that they're born with, that they're good at, right? And it's not work to them. Even though the money is obviously way different. We're just, but we do the same thing. We do what we do because we love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there anything that you do to kind of strengthen your creative muscle?
Sorry, Emma, what was that? Sorry.
Is there anything that you do to kind of strengthen your creative muscle?
Yeah, read a lot of books. Read a lot of books. Be in the know. Be that's what I mean by being relevant. Stay focused. You know, uh, I don't like predictability. I don't like all those things. My wife would tell you, the two things that Marlo would never ever do in his life, that is wear white and go on a cruise. And let me tell you why, because, for me, going on a cruise is too predictable. I'm going to walk in there with the same people that I walked out with or in with. I'm going to see that same guy in the buffet table. I'm going to see the same guy in the washing. I'm going to see the same guy in the pool. And there's no outlet. And that, to me, it's too predictable. And I don't get inspiration from that, right? And that's just me and my thinking, right? But, it's weird, but that's how it works. And when I say white, it's just because, for the people that don't know me, there's one thing that a lot of people don't know about me is that as a designer, I'm colorblind.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So if you know me, there's a reason why I'm monochrome, and I only know color because of what I know, but from what I hear, see, and from what I read, I know an apple is red, and I know a sun is yellow. When you get into the pastels, when you get into the secondary colors, the mixed tones, I'm done. But the beauty about that is that whatever I do, it never really affected my career. You know, I would present colors to my client, and because they felt good to me, they complemented each other in some way, and that worked for me, right?
Mhm.
Luckily, right? Because or else, I mean, I've been lying to my clients all these years in terms of color, I guess. But yeah,
No, it's crazy. I don't know what I would do without color. So I feel for you there. But I guess it's what you know.
yeah.
So I want to open it up to audience question if we have one. Okay, so great talk, Marlo. I'm wondering, what was your ideation process for Nothing Special? It was such a beautiful and unique project.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that question, Jasmine. Yeah, it was one of those jobs, when it came to me, and they wanted to, we were in the same thinking in terms of what the expectations were. So, my idea there was again, how do we impress the people that are receiving this? How do we pique their interest, right? Because if you're receiving something in the mail or by courier that size, and then it has nothing special on it, it better be it better be special. And I think and that's good because you're raising that you're challenging yourself. How can we make this special, right? And how can we make this so that people, when they get it, they don't throw it away. They use it and then just display it on their coffee table, right? But the process of that whole book was, as I mentioned, it was a long process, because I had to experiment on a lot of materials, a lot of substrates, a lot of just trying things out if it worked or not, things like that. So in a way, I had to put on my engineering hat, or I had to put on my rendering hat, just to make sure that everything kind of works. And those are the kind of things as a designer, you gotta do, because I was mentioning earlier on, even though I graduated from graphic design, I'm not going to mention how many years ago, but a long time ago. The thing about graphic design is that even now I don't even like the words graphic design, because I think it's way more than that. There's so many branches that you can go to in terms of graphic design. So many other industries and that you can collaborate with. Industrial designers, architects, interior designers, pottery makers. Those are the people that I like. I collaborate with. So it's a different thinking all of a sudden. It's not just about a logo. It's more than that, right? It's definitely it's overwhelming sometimes, but I think once you set your mind to those things, it makes you actually a way better designer, better thinker as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in a lot of things, it's these multiple different industries that are coming together to make an experience for the customer. Like the restaurant business, like it's everything from the logo to the menu to the lighting, the materials used that like makes an experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but the thing with restaurant is so because I've done so many of it, right? So when a client comes to me and they say, "Oh, you specialize in menus," I don't, because I don't like the word specialize. For me, every client should be different in their own way, and plus, I don't want it to look like a formula, right? But the problem sometimes, for a challenge with restaurants, is that how do you reinvent it, right? How do you reinvent doing a menu, right? Or doing a uniform? You're gonna run out of options, right? So the only way you can reinvent it is that if you have a client that is willing to be as inventive as you, right? And then you can push the envelope, because a lot of times when you push the envelope, a lot of times it doesn't go, because for many reasons, budget, timing, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. We can do one more question from the audience. This is from Sabrina. I love how your designs often have Easter eggs hidden in them. Does this come organically in your creation process, or do you inject that unique touch once you have the design skeleton completed?
I mean, good question, Sabrina. It's hard to explain when the design comes in. The best way to explain is that it comes. I wouldn't say it comes easy to me. Just because what happens is that if you've been in the industry for quite a while, you build up a good portfolio of ideas in your head, and they're there, and it's just waiting for that one client that you can pick that idea from your brain and then trying to work with it, and then everything else kind of like just again comes organically, as Sabrina mentioned, right? And those unique touches, again, for me, it's all about creativity. It's all about the foundation of a design, the storytelling behind it, and then everything else becomes just pretty visuals. And as you know, that comes easy too now. With the way things are, and the one thing I wanted to add before we leave is that with young designers such as like yourself, Emma, and everybody that's online here, there's it's different era where you guys are now. In a way, I feel a little bit it's unfortunate just because I think for you guys you have a lot to deal with, and a lot of times when you have all these things, for God's sake, you guys have the pandemic, you have the war, all these things, and as designers, that's a lot of responsibilities, and the high cost of living. That's for designers. I remember I was able to design what I wanted, and I was able to concentrate and be passionate in designing stuff because when I was younger, I lived with my parents. I didn't have to worry about rent. I didn't have to worry about food, laundry, internet, all that stuff, whatever it may be, right? So I was focused on just designing. And nowadays, I feel it's unfortunate the young designers now, a lot of them are very talented, but the problem is they just have so much burden on them too, because you know what, they're they have so much responsibilities that they can't concentrate on design. I remember the days where I didn't even worry about time. I didn't worry about going to a bar and going to a drink, having a drink. It was just all about just design. But now it's all about that. You need to enjoy yourself as younger generations, right? There's a lot more going on, and so what happens? Yeah, the design gets back, becomes a back seat. It's not prioritized as much. So.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have been feeling the weights of the world these past few months, and even these past 2 years. But I think that just like pushes us to do better and to raise the voices of the people's voices that aren't being heard right now.
Of course,
Yeah.
3 words. I mean, 3 words you should always just keep in mind: adapt, resilience, and freedom. 3 words, and that will be your foundation of how your best your career, yourself, and what you want to do. It's all going to come full circle.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Marlo. That's all the time we have today. We have a talk tomorrow at 11 a.m. You can register at yes.schoolofdesign.ca. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the chat as much as I did. Learned a lot, definitely. I want to push myself harder now to not do the normal and to not be predictable. So I hope everyone else does too.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marlo.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for
Bye.
everything. Bye.
Yeah.